Hi, this is Paul Morin with the Energy Conservatory, and welcome to our webinar titled Practical Applications for the Wi-Fi Link. And a few housekeeping items. If you're having trouble with your audio, click on Meeting in the main navigation menu and choose the Audio Setup Wizard, and then follow through those steps to get your audio set up. If you're joining us using Adobe Connect app on a mobile device, you may need to use external speakers or headphones to hear the audio. And feel free to type in questions on the right as we're going along, and we'll be typing in answers as we go along. We'll review some of those questions at the end and take questions at the end of the session also. And if your questions don't get answered during the session, we'll respond by email after the session to make sure all your questions get answered. We are recording this webinar, and it'll appear on our website and on our YouTube site. And let us know what type of webinars you'd like to see in the future. We're always looking for input, and we find our best attended webinars are the ones that you requested. We did a formal survey back a few years ago and got a lot of good requests, and we've done virtually all of those ones that were requested so far. This is available for BPI for one continuing education unit for BPI, and we'll be uploading that data like we always do, and that goes through the normal procedure, and those credits will appear after a short period of time on the BPI website. We won't be giving you a certificate of completion or anything like that. If you didn't provide your BPI number, then email that to us, your BPI your full name and your BPI number. And remember that you need to, in order to receive credits, you need to be logged in to the webinar using the same email address you used when you registered. So if you're watching it with another person and they're logged in, they'll get credit, but you won't. If you are having some difficulties with either audio or video as we're going along, you'll need to deal directly with Adobe Connect. We're not able to help you with those technical difficulties. So we've got a phone number here, 1-800-422-3623, and select the option for in-meeting support. And we've had really good luck with Adobe Connect so far, dealing with those difficulties people are having in viewing or hearing the webinar. But we also would appreciate you giving us feedback on any difficulties you're having or you had, and what kind of service you got from Adobe. We're always looking to improve this service, and we want to deal with any issues that might come up before the next webinar. So we appreciate your feedback. The agenda today, we're going to do just a brief intro on the Wi-Fi link, and we'll talk about the iTEC 700 features, applications for using it, why you might want to use the iTEC 700 for PC, for a personal computer. We'll talk about standalone data logging. That's an option. You can do pressure logging over time for long periods of time. We'll talk about why you might want to put your Wi-Fi link into router mode, and how to do that, and setting up a router network that is not a typical application, but it can be done. And then we'll be introducing our new automated testing app for you. It's not available yet, but we'll give you an intro to that. So in its very basics, this is what you get. It's an add-on for DG700s, and it fits onto the top without making any adaptations to your DG700. It goes right over the 9-pin serial connection on the top of the gauge and screws into the screws that are already there. And then it draws power from the batteries in the gauge by plugging it into the AC input on the side of the gauge. So really easy to just get it set up and connected and ready to go. And you can connect to either PC, iPad, iPhone, or Android phone or device. It'll work with all of those. So it eliminates the need for cabling, for serial or USB cables, and you don't need to be right up next to the fan like you would with cabling, and so it gives you some flexibility in a house. The DG700 by itself, is very good on batteries. You rarely need to change batteries when you're using the DG700 by itself. But the Wi-Fi Link does draw quite a bit of additional power. So instead of that 100 hours, you're more in the area of 19 to 28 hours of operation. So make sure and disconnect the Wi-Fi Link when you're not using it, or it'll drain batteries. And you can check your battery voltage. This is a feature that's always been in the gauge, but a lot of people weren't aware it was there. But when you first start up the gauge, first a bunch of gibberish comes up where everything lights up, and then a number is flashed for about a second that shows the voltage of the battery. So a fresh set of batteries should get you in the about a 9.25 volt range, and so that's the battery voltage. And once you're down below 6, it'll start telling you you've got low batteries. Make sure you're at least 7 volts when using the Wi-Fi Link. So you'll connect the power cable to start with, and when you do that, the first of 4 lights will come on, and that's a blue light will light up. And when you turn on the gauge, the second light will blink at first, and then when it goes solid, it's sending out a Wi-Fi signal. Then you'll connect to the Wi-Fi link, and it'll show up under you go to your Wi-Fi settings, and you can see all the networks that are available. And one of those will be DG700 dash, and then the serial number of your gauge. That'll show up as a Wi-Fi network, and you'll click connect to connect to that network. And the first time you connect to a DG700, it will ask you the password, and that's TEC Wi-Fi 12, and that's included in the paperwork that the manuals that you get with the Wi-Fi link. But the first time, you can move that Wi-Fi link from gauge to gauge, but the first time you connect to that gauge, it's going to ask for a password. So then you can run your compatible software, Wi-Fi compatible software app, and connect to the gauge. Either that, or with software that it'll have a command where you'll scan for ports and devices if you're using TechLog or TechType. So you'll do a scan and find out what devices are available to connect to, and then you'll connect to it. And once you connect to it, the voltage will show up, the gauge and the serial number will show up, and the last 2 lights, the third one is a green light, and then an amber one will start flashing once it starts sending data. And there'll be an amber light that'll also flash on your app that'll show that it's sending data. So the default mode for the Wi-Fi link when it's shipped is AC Direct Connect mode, and AP Direct Connect mode, and AP stands for access point. So it's a wireless access point. You don't need a router or any internet connection. The Wi-Fi link is sending out that Wi-Fi signal, and you're connecting directly to that. So there's no need for a router or an internet connection. You can use that anywhere. And this is the recommended mode for single gauge operation. If you're having trouble, if you're in a noisy Wi-Fi environment, so when you look at what networks are available, there's pages and pages of them. So maybe if you're right near an apartment complex, or you're in an apartment complex where there's a lot of Wi-Fi noise, or next to a hotel or something like that, you can switch network channels by pushing the A button, and you can see that's a button on the bottom of the gauge, and you'll be able to feel that. Hold that button in, just not hold it in, just push it in and release it, and that will switch your Wi-Fi channels. There is a free software that you can view. You can view all the Wi-Fi network activities in your area and see where your Wi-Fi connection is compared to all of those. So, and it's called Insider. If you do a Google search, INSSIDER software, it's a free download, and that shows where your, in this case, this is our Wi-Fi connection at work, Wi-Fi router at work, and you can see all the other ones in your area. So it's a live display of where the connections are in your area. And as you press that A button, it'll switch you by 5. There's 11 available, and it'll switch it by 5 every time you push it. And you'd like to find an area where you're higher than the other ones in your area, and where the center of it is where you're kind of centered on an area of no activity. So you can select and move around and find the area where there's least amount of activity. But when you're done setting your channel, then you want to shut this software off, because it tends to jam Wi-Fi signals as it's searching and showing you that information. So you want to turn that off when you're not using it. Router mode is another mode, and we'll talk in a little more detail on how to set up router mode. But you can use that with a single gauge to extend your distance, because now your gauge only has to talk as far as that router is, and then so you want to put it halfway between where you're going to be and where the computer is, and you can extend your distance that way. And or it allows you to communicate with more than one gauge in TEC 3, which is our graphing and multi-fan software. So you can connect up to 16 gauges in Wi-Fi by putting them in router mode. And again, it doesn't need you'll never need an internet connection to make this work. You can also set up a router network. In this case, you have a main router, and in this application, that main router was connected. We helped test a big warehouse building, and we had 9 fans set up that communicated with that main router. But we had 2 locations where there's concrete block walls, and you couldn't make a router connection. So you could run up to 300 feet of Ethernet cable, connect to another router, and network those routers together. So we had 3 fans in the front corner, 6 additional fans in the back corner, and then we made a solid wire connection to the computer, and we were able to do a rock solid connection and run that test where you're controlling all the fans from one slide bar on one computer. So iTEC 700 is our app that's available for iPhone, iPad, Android phone or device, and also software for a PC computer. And so if you're using iOS, iPhone, iPad, you'll go to the App Store. And important thing to know is that if you do a search for iTEC 700, it'll only come up under iPhone. So whether you're using it on an iPhone or an iPad, you'll wanna download the iPhone only version, and that'll work on either iPhone or iPad. For Android, you'll go to the Play Store, and it's also a free download from there. And for the iTEC 700 for PC, you'll go to our website and download that under software. Download that software to your PC directly from the website. So the main screen on iTEC 700, so we've already made the connection with the computer, with the, in this case it's an iPhone, or an iPad rather. So we've gone to the iPad Wi-Fi settings, we connected to the DG700. We're running a test, so now it's showing a pressure on channel A. So channel A is at the top. Channel A is always going to be pressure. That's not changeable on this app. And the next is a baseline feature, and you click on baseline and enter, like you always would for doing a baseline. It's pretty intuitive. And then the mode settings, you're only changing channel B when you change the mode. So when you click on this, it's a touchscreen. You click on the blue box, and you can change the modes and our channel B reading, obviously. And the device you change with this button. The ring configuration with this one. Time averaging is just like it is on the DG700, 1 second, 5 second, 10 second, or long term. Cruise control settings, there's a cruise on and off. You click on the white box here to adjust the cruise setting, and the stop to stop the fan. So turning the cruise off doesn't stop the fan, it just turns the cruise off. So you need to push the stop button to stop the fan moving. So this it's hard to see the slide bar here, but there is a line going across here, and this is the controller. So you click on the controller and pull it across, and that speeds up or slows down the fan, or you can use the cruise function. You can do it either way to control the fan speed. And then this is the settings button that will allow you to enter square footage and volume and that kind of information. And one really nice feature of this is the capture feature, where you can capture the data and look at the data you've collected, and there's a way to email that out, that data from your test. And to disconnect the app from your gauge, click on that box. So all of these white boxes, white circles, and blue boxes are all touchscreen points. That so it's pretty intuitive. If you're used to playing around with other apps, you'll find it's pretty intuitive to get around on it. There's more mode options because we're able to add square footage and volume. It can read out in air changes per hour. We added a 75 for you can set it in pressure flow at 75 as an option, and air changes per hour at 50. So you can have it at CFM 50 and get that reading, and then on the fly toggle, switch it to air changes per hour and get that reading. And then for duct leakage testing, you can have it in CFM 25 per square foot or per 100 square foot. So for code compliance, this is nice. You can toggle between CFM at 25 and CFM at 25 per 100 square feet to see if you pass the test. We also have the CFM per square foot. So square foot of surface area is a more common metric, so you can switch to that, or CFM 50 per 100 square feet, or same with 75, CFM 75 per square foot or per 100 square foot. So more more options for modes. There's more device options. We do have a micro leakage meter that for the duct blaster fan that'll go down to 1/10 of a CFM. So we've added that, so an additional device option. And then we weren't able to add ring 4 to the DG700, but if you purchased a ring 4 for the duct blaster fan, it'll display those readings now, and then also the discs for the micro leakage meter are on there also. There are more cruise features. So if you're setting the cruise, we've always had 0, 25, or 50. You can toggle between those, but we've added 75 and a custom feature. So now you can cruise whatever pressure you want. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but it is an option. Like I mentioned, this is one of the really nice features where you're able to capture the data and email the results. And so when you push that settings button, this screen, the settings screen, will come up, and this allows you to configure the Wi-Fi link into router mode, adjust the units if you're in Canada, change the floor area, or enter the floor area or the volume, or this area could be surface area if you're looking at that. So it could be either floor area or surface area depending on which metric you're using. You can adjust the fan adjust rate. So if you want the cruise to get up to speed faster, you can adjust that fan adjust rate. And you can also decide if you want that capture to be in the text form or the XML format. So XML is computer language, is probably the easiest way to describe it. So if you have a software that you want to bring this data from your test into your software, this is the lingo that'll allow you to do that. So that's really the only application you'd have for XML. So text is the format you'll typically use, and that gives you, it'll label it. You can change this label, but it just put the timestamp in there as a label, and channel A, what your baseline reading was, the value and the mode. So if you're in CFM 50 when you do the capture, it'll give you 1297 CFM 50, and the flow units, whether they're in CFM or whatever they're in, the channel B reading. So you see your baseline and your pressure reading, and the mode was at CFM at 50, so that number being displayed is your CFM 50 number. The device, the ring configuration, averaging, the area volume you entered in, the time you did it. So you can change this label to something else and you'll still have the timestamp in there. And serial number of the gauge, so it pulls in, you don't have to enter this information, it pulls it in off of a chip on the gauge, the serial number and the calibration date. So great information to have. And then you can enter in comments right in that app also. And then you can email it right from the phone. So to email the results, when you click on the create button, it'll pull up the capture edit screen, and you can change the label and add comments here, and then click the send icon there. And then you can choose between whether you want to send it to mail, or if you have Google Drive set up on your app or Dropbox set up on your app, you can choose one of those and send it that way. So some great applications for this is CAS testing, and that's one of them that is used the most often, where you can leave the DG700 down in the CAS zone, and then walk around the house and view pressures as you turn on fans. And you can even, if you want to do a screenshot, do a capture that way of what your readings are when you turn on different fans, that's an option. And we did a webinar a while ago, back in 2014, and that is a webinar that included a live video of going around doing an example of how to do that, do a CAS test using the iPad. And you can view that by going to our website, energyconservatory.com, under support and training, past webinars, and then 2014 webinars. You'll see that CAS testing webinar. ZPD testing is another option, certainly, where you can do, you can set your gauge to cruise 50, and with channel A and channel B can be running to another zone if you're in just the pressure mode, and then you can walk around and check pressures, and you can even do a screenshot of the pressures that you're taking in different zones in the house, and you can see that if you're doing open a door or add a hole procedure, you can see that the house is now at 50 pascals and see what the pressure is in that zone, and then do a screenshot to capture that data. So it is really, if you're doing that kind of zone pressure diagnostics, it helps you do that. Or insulators love it for doing blower guided air sealing, because it allows you to, if you're up in the attic doing sealing, you can close the hatch, start up the fan, and check your progress. So see how much reduction you've gotten from a certain measure, or see how much reduction you've gotten in the last half hour. And then you can also check your work. The blower door is running. You can use smoke to make sure that the method you're using is effective, and then you can turn the fan off. So great application for using the app. We also have iTEC 700 for PC, so you can download this software on a computer, and it'll allow you to remotely view and control multiple DG700. So you would put them in router mode, connect your computer to that router, and now you can put multiple gauges, multiple of those iTEC 700s on your screen, and you can scale those to size and put as many of those as you need on the screen. So pretty cool application. And you could maybe use that for duct leakage outside testing, where you have one gauge for the blower door and one gauge for the duct blaster, and you can control those both of those from the computer, and see the results. So or you could certainly, if you're a trainer, you can this is a great application where you can use this for some training applications. If you find the need, you could use this maybe for quality control or something, where you can use a third-party screen-saving software and use that to where you can view somebody else's computer screen remotely, and they can even give you control. So you could control that software, and we've actually used this application where we're trying to help people do the most common application is big building tests. If they're having trouble with the TechLog software, we'll use a third-party screen sharing software. In fact, it's Adobe Connect that we use, and we can see your screen, whatever problems you're having, and as long as both have internet connection, and we can take control of the screen and show you how to run a test. You also use the iTEC 700 for PC software when you're configuring the Wi-Fi link to data logging mode. So there's data can be stored on that Wi-Fi link. There's memory on that Wi-Fi link, so you can take advantage of that and do some long-term pressure logging. So you might be trying to troubleshoot problems in a house, either with a HVAC system, where you can monitor when that comes on and off. You know, just leave it there for a week and see how often it cycles. Just put a probe in either the supply or return, or both if you want to. You could monitor backdrafting by measuring pressure difference between inside and outside, and pressure in the vent. Those are some applications for doing this kind of data logging. So the way you would set this up is you would first, this is only for a PC now, so you're set up on a PC. You'll go to your Wi-Fi settings, you'll connect to that DG700, you'll launch the iTEC-700 for PC app, and then you'll click on the gauge you want to use. If you're connecting to multiple gauges through router, you might have a whole listing of gauges that you want to set up for logging. So you'll need to click on that gauge before you connect to it. You can't connect to it unless you click on it first, so you have to, even if it's only one gauge, you have to choose that gauge and then click on connect. And then once you connect to it, the main screen will come up, and to set up that for data logging, you'll need to click on the settings button. So with this application, it's up on the upper right corners where the settings button is, and you'll click on that, and that'll pull up the settings menu, and you'll choose logging menu for the option, and the logging menu will come up, and then you can give this session a title, and you can label what you're using channel A and channel B for. If you're only using one channel, you can turn one of the channels off, so instead of getting just a steady 0 across there, when you turn it off, nothing will show up. And you can set the sampling interval. So if you set it for 1 second, which is the minimum you can set it for, you can data log for 8 days before the memory is used up. If you want to do it for longer than 8 days, you can adjust that interval. So if you change it to 5 seconds, it's taking 1 data point every 5 seconds, then you could data log for that way for 40 days, and you can set that up as long as you want. You could data log for a year if you wanted to. So the next step would be to click on the start logging, and a fresh set of batteries will allow you to data log for up to 8 hours. And once it starts, once you start that logging, then you'll notice that 2 of the lights will blink really briefly every 2 seconds, and the ones that'll blink is the blue that tells you that the logging mode is active, and the green, which tells you that data storage is taking place. So if those 2 are blinking, you know the data logging is active, and you know that data storage is taking place. The green and the yellow will not blink, but the yellow will start blinking if the batteries are low or critically low. Then the yellow light will start blinking. So that tells you that you've got that going on. And then your iTEC-700 screen will lose connection with the computer. The Wi-Fi link and the computer lose that connection, because now you're not in the AP, the access point mode anymore. Excuse me. You're not in the access point anymore. You're now in the data logging mode. So now it's searching. It'll continue searching to see if there are gauges in the area to connect to. So now you can just shut down that software. You know that it's not sending out that AP signal anymore. It's searching for a signal. So you can just shut down the iTEC 700 software at that point, and you know that it's in the data logging mode and that it's storing data. We do have a splitter and an AC power supply adapter. So you can plug it into a wall, plug it into an outlet, and split that signal. So now it's powering both the Wi-Fi link and the DG700. So now it's not running off the batteries in the DG700. It's not charging batteries in the DG700. It doesn't have that capability. All it's doing is getting AC power and not using the batteries. You can leave the batteries in. That doesn't matter. But you can plug into AC power and run the gauge and the Wi-Fi link for as long as you want. There may be applications where it's not easy to get to power, and certainly that happens in commercial buildings where you're doing some remote pressure measurements or some monitoring air handlers or something on that order to do some troubleshooting, monitoring pressures of any kind, and you may not have access to power in that remote location. And we have had a customer of ours that had new batteries in the gauge plus an external 12 volt DC 7 amp hour sealed battery, and was able to get 20 to 25 days of logging using that approach. So you can get creative and use 12 volt batteries to get additional power to the gauge and the Wi-Fi link. So now you're done data logging and you're ready to download the data. To stop the data logging, there's an A button on the bottom of the gauge. There's also a B. It's not a button, but it's a recess thing. Don't play around with that, or that's not for you to use. But the A button is there to push and hold. So when you push and hold the A button until all the lights are flashing, that will put it back into the AP access point mode. So now it's sending out a Wi-Fi signal again, and now you can connect to it to download the data. So you'll hold that A button down, lights will start flashing, and then let it go, and then the number 1 blue light will be on, the number 2 green light will flash, and for a few seconds, and then once it's sending out a Wi-Fi signal, it'll go solid. Then you'll launch the iTEC 700 for PC software, and you'll look at the Wi-Fi settings, and you'll see your DG700 now, and you'll choose that one and connect to it, and then you'll launch the iTEC 700 software, and remember, you need to click on the gauge before you click on connect. Choose which gauge you want and click on connect, and then once you connect, then you'll get to the main iTEC 700 screen, and you'll click on the settings button, you'll click on logging menu, and you'll click on download data. Then it'll prompt you to give it a file name, tell it where you want to save it, and then once you save it, then you'll want to clear the data. You don't need to clear the data right away, but you will need to clear the data before you start logging again. All the data needs to be cleared before you can start a new log. So next we'll talk about how to make the switch from AP access point mode to router mode. And again, this can increase the reach of your Wi-Fi connection for a single gauge, or allow you to connect to multiple gauges when using TEC Log 3, or maybe you're using the iTEC 700 for PC to pull multiple gauges up onto a screen. So first step, as always, you'll go into your PC computer, you'll start that up, you'll pull up the Wi-Fi settings, you'll connect to the first gauge, and so this is in your regular AP mode. You'll launch the iTEC 700 app and click on connect. You'll make that connection, and then you'll click on, and you can do this from, you can switch to router mode using any of our apps or software. So it could be, you could do it from an iPhone, from an iPad, from an Android phone, from a Android tablet, or from the PC version. You can put it into router mode from any of those apps or devices. And the method is really the same. You'll click on the settings button. I guess if you're doing this from TechTite or TechLog, then you'll scan for ports and devices. It's a little bit different process, but you'll either do scan for ports or device, or go to the settings menu. With the apps, you go to the settings menu and then go configure Wi-Fi link. You'll click on that button, and then it'll pull up the configure Wi-Fi link screen. You'll move this button over to choose connect to router, and then it allows you to enter in an SSID name. And what that name is when you look at your Wi-Fi settings, it's the wording on that router as it appears under Wi-Fi settings, and it's case sensitive, and if there's spaces, you need to put spaces in there. So enter the SSID, which is the name that as it appears on your Wi-Fi settings list, and enter that in there, and click on next, and then that brings up the password. Then you'll enter the password for that router in, and click done, and then click apply configuration. And after you pick apply configuration, the Wi-Fi link is now configured into the router mode, so you'll lose connection between your app or software and that gauge, because now it's searching. The Wi-Fi link is now searching for that router, and when it finds that router, it'll connect to it. So that that green light, the second light, number 2 light on the Wi-Fi link, will keep blinking until it finds that router, and then it'll go solid. Now it's connected directly to the router. So now you can follow that same procedure with all the other gauges. So you'll need to step through this procedure and put each gauge from the AP mode to the router mode, and it's not really the gauge you're putting in. It's really the Wi-Fi link that you're putting in the router mode. So if you once that link is in the router mode, it'll stay in the router mode until you take it out of the router mode. And the way you take it out of router mode is to hold that A button down until all the 4 lights flash, and then it's put back in the AP mode. But you'll follow these same procedures to put all of the gauges into the router mode, and then after you're done with all of those, then you go to the Wi-Fi settings and choose that router, and now you've made the connections. When you do a scan for ports and devices, all of those gauges will show up now. Remember, your computer can only make one Wi-Fi connection, so if you want to connect to more than one device, you need to go through a router. There's also the ability to do a router network. We did this when we helped we helped the company do a test of a big warehouse, and we set up a router network where you have one router that has the ability to set up a network. And in this case, we talked to 9 fans with that main router, and then we had some remote locations that had concrete block walls where you couldn't make a router connection. You can run a cable back to another router, and you can run up to 300 feet of Ethernet cable from that main router to other locations, and then from that router to your computer to make a good solid connection. So as long as you have line of sight with this router with these 9 fans, and we've got 6 fans back here that could see this router, 3 fans up here that could see that one, we had really solid connection with all of those fans, and we're able to control all of them with one cruise controller slide bar on the computer in that software. Next we'll do a demo of an automated testing app that we have called TEC Auto Test for doing duct leakage testing and blower door testing. It's not available yet, but this will give you a sense of what it's going to look like. Now we're going to get started on a demo for our automated test app, and that allows you to do a duct leakage test or a blower door test. The duct leakage test follows the RESNET Chapter 8 standard single point total duct leakage test, and the blower door test follows the RESNET multi-point test standard. So this allows you to do an automated test where it's taking the information directly from the gauge to the app and generate a report, and then send that report either via email or to the cloud via something like Dropbox or Google Drive. So we'll start by launching that app, and you can see we're in the project screen here, and over time you'll have a long list of projects here, and you can sort them in alphabetical order or by time, so most recent or oldest. So that gives you a way of keeping track of your projects and doing different kinds of sorts. You can edit this list also. There's an edit button here, and if we click on edit, you'll notice that circles will appear here. We can click on one of those and go down to the trash can, and we can see that one disappeared. And when we're done editing, we'll click on the done button, and that's so that's kind of getting a little better organization and control of your projects page. And then over on the right here, there's an information button, and the about will show you the current version of that. The help menu is pretty extensive. You can see by the table of contents that there's quite a bit of information here that will take you through any questions you might have about the software. And as always, if you have any questions, you can call tech support, and we can help talk you through it also. But pretty extensive help menu that guides you through all the steps of the projects and the other screens. And next we'll take a look at the settings. The settings from this page are the things that'll pretty much stay the same, that you'll set up once and you can go back and edit them. But it's the devices. You're going to have a Model 3 blower door or duct blaster, and you can click on one of these arrows here, and that allows you to change a label. So if you have multiple fans, you might call one old fan, new fan, or Paul's fan and John's fan, or whatever. You can give it a label for that fan, And then you can also enter in the serial number and you know, that kind of information in there. So that's so this flow device is the Model 3 blower door we clicked on, and lets you enter in all of that information. And then also you can change the units to metric if you need to for flow or temperature. Put in your information, your credentials, and your email address, and all this type of information will show up in your report. So it's important that you go through and fill all this out. If you want whatever information you want included in the report, you can fill out here. So the testing company and all that contact information. So these are the settings that you would typically stay the same throughout most of your projects. Go back to the projects page, and now we're going to click on example here, that one that's in there, and let's go first to enter the customer and building information. And one nice feature on this is you can all of the building address information, you can click on determine location here, and it will zoom in on your location, and it'll pull up your address here for this location, and you can use this address, and now it'll pull all of this information into, instead of you having to enter it in, it'll pull in all that information. So not only the longitude and latitude, but also the altitude that comes into play. You need that for the RESNET test. You need that elevation, and then the timestamp. So pull all that information into your report. Okay, so it pulled in all that latest information there from the house we're doing the testing at, and then all of the customer information, whoever your customer is, who's ever paying the bill, you can enter that information on who your customer is for that job. Go back to example. So now we can see that there's 2 tests that have been done for this project. So let's click on the envelope test here, and that'll bring up all the basic information that we entered for that test, the building volume and the leakage metric we're using, that kind of information. And then we can click on show the results from that test. So right after you've completed a test, you can take a look at the results, all the information that's brought in for that test, what equipment you used, and the model numbers. All that is brought in from, you don't have to enter that in, that's brought in automatically from the gauge you're using. We'll go back to that page, and now we'll take a look at the report. So this is the information that you'll be sending to the client. So you know, all the basic building information, customer information, testing company, and the results, and all of the results from the multi-point test. And then the second page has the serial number and calibration date, any deviations from standard, and any comments. You can add comments on where, you know, where the blower door was set up, and you know, any other pertinent information about the housing setup, or whatever information you want included in that test. You can add comments there. So that's the report. Okay. Go back one more page. So now if you want to add a test, The next step to add a test will be clicking on the plus here from this page where the tests are. You click on the plus icon here, and it'll allow you to give this this test a name. So let's call this demo pretest. Oops. Demo pretest. Click OK, and now we're ready to run the test. So we can go down to run test here. And now our test page comes up, and now I'm going to go turn on the gauge. Now you can see when I turn that gauge on, we've got a connect button here. And we'll choose that. And then those of you that have used TEC before, you'll see this idle monitoring here. And you can see we're using a duct blaster fan on open condition and we're actually using a duct blaster fan for a blower door test in this situation. But you can choose between a duct leakage test and blower door test, and this is our blower door test that we're showing here. We're just using the duct blaster fan. So I'm going to click on start test down here, and it asks for indoor and outdoor temperature. And we'll hit continue. Now it's asking to cover the fan for the baseline, and we'll hit continue. So it's guiding us through this. We can see it did an auto 0, and now it's measuring the baseline reading. So it's taking data right now. And now it's asking us to uncover the fan and continue. And so we're all ready to go. So hit continue. And we've got open fan, okay. Now we can see it's ramping up our speed control here, up to our first data point. Now it's sampling at, so our status bar here is always going to tell us where we're at in the test, and it's doing a sample now at 60 pascals. Now it's adjusting our fan down to 54. Now we're adjusting for 48. Sampling at 48. Adjusting for 42. Sampling at 42. So you kind of get an idea, you know, kind of once it gets started, it'll step through all of those data points fairly quickly. And we're testing at it's following the RESNET test standard, which tests at 8 data points between 60 and 18, and it evenly splits up those 8 data points, and then it'll automatically do that density correction for the temperature difference between inside and outside, and elevation. All of those density corrections that RESNET requires, and it will also calculate the accuracy of the test and the accuracy repeatability and as a correlation coefficient, and we'll show that when we look at the results, and we'll want that correlation coefficient to be above 0.99 on windy days. That can be an issue. If it's less than 0.99, you'll wanna run another test to try to get some better data. And it calculates the accuracy of the test. So based on all of these different data points, you'll get a lot of good data. And then we'll be able to generate a report from the data, and email out a report. So we'll show you that after we're done with this test, show you how you can generate a report, a PDF of a report, and send out that information directly from the app. So now it's asking us to cover the fan, and once that's covered, it'll take a baseline at the end. So those of you who are familiar with using the TEC software, this will look very similar. It's not drawing a graph, but it's putting the information kind of in this this format. So now I'm going to click Done up here. That brings us back so we can show the results. So there's the results of our test, and we can see our correlation coefficient is really good, and we did the RESNET 8-point multi-point test. So I'm going to go back to our original project, and this example has everything else filled out. So I'm going to choose one of these tests from that example. I'm going to click on this arrow for the duct test here, and then we can show report. And then up on the upper right here, once we've generated our report, we can click on that to send out the email. So we have a choice of either emailing the report, or if you have Google Drive or Dropbox set up on your iPad, you can choose Google Drive here, or save to Dropbox. So that's kind of nice, or you could print it, but that gives you a really nice report that you can send to your builder, or you can sign it for code compliance, print off copy and sign it, and turn that in.